I'm Brooke Kirchhoffer here with you live after the Saints open up with a 34-23 win to kick off the season over Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And of course, Tom Brady. This was a matchup so many anticipated, and it really came down to in-game adjustments as they talked about all week, from Bruce Arians to Sean Payton. No OTAs, no mini camps, no preseason games. So it was really just a question mark on the schedule as we headed into the season. But the Saints get it done in front of no fans. Crazy to just imagine a matchup of this caliber of Tom Brady and the Buccaneers against Drew Brees and the Saints. And there are no fans in the stands. Very empty, very weird, just weird atmosphere you saw on the sidelines during the game. Players looking to pump themselves up. Let's go to some of these stats. Drew Brees going for 18 for 30, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. We go over to the other side. Tom Brady, 23 for 36 and 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, but the most important stat right here, 2 interceptions. A lot of people on social media giving stabs at Tom Brady, saying, hey, we saw this last year with Jameis Winston, but also to note, this is a totally new season, one where, again, they got no game experience this offseason. This was really their first true test, almost like you would treat it as a scrimmage, not knowing what to expect. But I would give the biggest grade to the Saints and Bucs defensive lines. They completely made Tom Brady and Drew Brees just uncomfortable in this game. And uncovered in this game, Saints linebacker Demario Davis was actually given a contract extension this year. He signed a 3-year extension, good for $27 million and $18.35 million guaranteed. Another guy getting paid, Alvin Kamara, and he showed why he was worth that tonight with 2 touchdowns, almost a third, but it was called back from of course, a play you would see only from head coach Sean Payton, where you see Drew Brees toss it out to Taysom Hill, and then Taysom Hill go deep to Alvin Kamara towards the end of the game. But again, that was taken back. And how about the guys that were signed this week? Benny Fowler and Marcus Hunt showing out for the team. They both were on the practice squad this past week. And then, of course, 2 huge major signings for the Saints. Carolina Panthers and the Panthers also took a big loss today. So that puts the Saints in first place in the NFC South standings, as the Falcons also fall today. So just a huge start for the New Orleans Saints, and also a lot of tapes to look at. The first quarter was not pretty for both offenses, truly struggling to just get a feel for things. Brees really wasn't even able to connect with Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders till later in the game. He relied heavily on the run game and also throwing to Jared Cook, a connection we were excited to see after last season, those 2 guys finally getting in a rhythm with each other. But how about the Saints defense? C.J. Gardner-Johnson led with 10 total tackles, 9 solo. Janoris Jenkins, a huge pickup last year for the Saints, traded from the Giants. He had 9 total tackles, 8 solo. And then Demario Davis behind him, he had a sack in the game. You know, he was just itching for that to get to Tom Brady. Another guy who had a sack, Carl Granderson, also a big addition this week, especially with Marcus Davenport out with an injury. They're starting defensive end. Huge blow to the defensive line, but they showed it did not affect them. That just shows you how much depth the Saints defense has. And then you look at the offensive line with Cesar Ruiz, who they expected to start in week 1. They actually were able to put Nick Easton in the game. And if you remember last year, Thanksgiving against the Falcons, Nick Easton had to come in and provide that depth for the offensive line, and he was able to do that tonight. Drew Brees, again, having a 160-yard passing game with 2 touchdowns. And, of course, we are waiting to hear from Drew Brees and Sean Payton here in a little bit. They will come speak at the podium. Of course, this is also something new to the fans, to the media, to everyone, that These is going to be a Zoom press conference interview. Of course, you see it there. Very strange, very different. media limited in the Dome. Us watching back here in Baton Rouge. As we continue, how about Levante David for the Tampa Bay Bucks? He had 11 total tackles, 6 solo, 2 tackles for a loss. He made Drew Brees and the Saints wide receivers just uncomfortable tonight. Of course, the Saints, long road to go, but hey, a good start here. They were able to get Emmanuel Sanders in the mix, and of course, he had his first touchdown in the black and gold. Happy to see him get in the mix. Deontay Harris, very much in play. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 receivers get into the mix in this game for New Orleans. But on the other side, Tampa Bay also with a long list of caliber receivers. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 receivers get into the mix. And of course, heavily relied on Jones in the rushing game with 66 yards on the ground. How about Tom Brady, though? Who would have thought his first touchdown with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be a rushing touchdown, a quarterback sneak? Exciting to see him get involved. And in total, like I said, defense won the battle tonight. They held the Saints to just 189 yards rushing. And if you remember last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers led the NFL in rushing defense, and they really only lost 1 starter from that defense. And it showed tonight. The Tampa Bay Bucks went 224 yards in the air. They held the Saints to 82 yards. I misread that. The Saints had 189 passing yards in the game, but they held the Saints to 82 rushing yards. But the Saints, on the other hand, they held the Bucks to 86 rushing yards as well. Penalties, you can imagine that was a lot higher tonight too, with not having those preseason games and OTAs and mini camps to kind of get those grooves out of your system. The Tampa Bay Bucks had 9 penalties for 103 yards. The Saints, 6 penalties for 119 yards. Of course, Marcus Williams, big name tonight. Marcus Hunt as well. Marcus Williams with a huge interception that changed the game, and Marcus Hunt with the blocked field goal. Another game changer in this one. I'm looking forward to see how they get some of those guys into the mix this year, and especially you have to imagine when Marcus Davenport is healthy, Cesar Ruiz, the rookie, first-round draft pick for the Saints. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he meshes in with that offensive line. Will he start at center? Will he start at right guard? We don't know. Those things are still left to remain unseen. But of course, he'll have to build that chemistry with Drew Brees. Drew Brees tonight broke another NFL record. I know you're not surprised to hear that. He holds quite a few, and Tom Brady just on the heels of Drew Brees on a lot of those NFL all-time records. Drew Brees had 10,170 passing attempts reached tonight. That was actually in the first quarter, so of course that number has increased, but now he holds another NFL record, and he does so with a win over the Tampa Bay Bucks to start things off. 34-23, the win for New Orleans. And now we go to video of no fans at the Superdome. What that was like for Who Dat Nation to not be there, I imagine just a hard thing to swallow and take for the fans who are just so used to being in the Dome. My first year in the Superdome was last year, and let me tell you, made a difference. I've never heard a stadium or dome be as loud as the Superdome is when it's rocking. Specifically, you guys that have been in there, you remember that Texans-Saints game last year. You couldn't hear the person standing next to you. It was so loud, and that was, of course, talked about. They did the white noise, the pumped-in noise. Saints were practicing with that. Also, again, trying to pump each other up. I know, actually, a few guys were taunting Will Lutz in practice, trying to get him prepared for the game, not knowing what to expect. Will Lutz was like, hey guys, give me everything you've got in practice. I want to hear the crowd noise that would have been there. I want you guys to taunt me so I can get used to, you know, what this first game is going to be like. One thing I was kind of surprised to see was, you know, of course, this first game is all about being comfortable. We didn't see a lot of.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Get into this game. Just 2 receptions, but of course now we go to
Yeah, we got
Sean
you.
Payton,
Yeah, we got you,
who's
Sean.
at the podium, the winning head coach. Let's go over to him.
Go ahead, guys.
Sean, what was the atmosphere like in there today, from down on the field level?
Look, it was different. Obviously, you can hear, well, you just can hear so much more relative to the game. Players on both sides of the ball, obviously different than what you're used to, and yet that's just the way it's going to be here for a while. So I think once the game got going, you kind of focused on the task at hand.
Hey, Sean, what's your assessment of the team's overall performance tonight?
Look, I thought defensively we were outstanding. I'm proud of how we played in the kicking game as well. You know, offensively, that was probably as bad a game as I've had as a play caller. You know, just trying to find a rhythm and a tempo that was awful. So there'll be a lot we have to correct and clean up. There always is after the first week of the season, regular season, and certainly first game really for us to play. But there's a lot of things we're going to look at that we're going to need to clean up, and we'll try to do that beginning this week.
Kind of on those same lines, after the first 2 possessions you had on offense, on that third possession, did you feel like, hey, I had to kind of go through my play call and kind of call stuff that, you know, try to get something jump-started? Did you feel that way?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, there's games where you feel like you get into a rhythm, and, you know, I thought we ran the ball pretty well. I didn't really help us out any with some of the looks and some of the calls I made. Yeah, look, there's a handful of plays that we're going to watch on tape, and it's not going to be the players. It's on me. So I've got to be a lot better.
On the cornerbacks, it is the way you play defense. Is some of those pass interference calls just sort of go with the way you're playing when you're playing that tight on guys? Do you sort of accept some of those?
Listen, I can't, you know, if there's one thing we've learned is to worry about the things we can control, and we can't control that.
The 2 players you called up from the practice squad in Benny Fowler and Marcus Hunt both had really big special teams plays today. How beneficial were they, especially just that you could bring them up from the practice squad?
Those were 2 big plays for us. They're veteran, experienced football players that both had good camps.
Sean, you also signed Demario Davis to an extension
affected you in your
last
play
night.
calling?
Can you sum up how much he's meant to this team, and you expect him to continue meaning to this team?
Look, I'm happy. I felt confident that we were going to get Alvin's deal done. He's an exceptional player for us. Both sides worked real hard at it. And so, man, he looked good today, and I have a hard time. I didn't get a good angle on that last touchdown, but yeah, he means a lot to what we do offensively. So, congrats to both Mickey, his agent, Alvin, all of those people involved, and Kai to get that deal done.
Sean, it was reported during the game that Demario Davis was signed to a 3-year extension. Can you speak about what he brings to the Saints defense and why it was a priority to keep him around a little longer?
I didn't hear the question. It was reported during the game that what?
That Demario Davis was signed to a 3-year extension. Could you speak about what he brings to this defense?
Listen, I can speak to what he brings. I can't speak to an extension until, I hear of it here. Obviously, he's one of our leaders. He's a physical player. He runs well. Man, he's found his niche here too, and I'm proud of the role he's taken, not only as a linebacker but as a leader on this team. And it's one of the things that I feel like as a head coach, you can never take for granted. But the leadership in the locker room is fantastic.
Sean, you talked about how this was going to be a game with adjustments. After that first drive on defense, do do you guys feel like that process went really well and you guys were able to settle in and kind of figure out what you needed to do?
That obviously it was a tough first drive. They had a good rhythm and tempo, and conversely, so fortunately we were able to change the momentum and then kind of keep it going through the second half, and then out at the beginning of the beginning of the third quarter.
When the offense is kind of struggling like that, how big were those 2 picks, especially Janoris's pick 6 there?
Well, look, you win the turnover battle like we did. You have a turnover for a touchdown. I mean, you're 90-some% winner in those games, and obviously those are big plays for us. You block a field goal. I mean, there's just a lot of things happened in that game that despite how you play, those things can help you win games. And the energy and effort I was pleased with.
Sean, what did they do against Mike Thomas that kind of maybe made it hard to get him the ball?
We got a little bit more zone pressure from them than we normally get. And again, I get back to, man, he's a fantastic player. I did a poor job. I said it at the beginning. We'll look at the tape. We'll clean it up. But obviously he's a tremendous threat for us.
Hey, Sean, what did you see in the 46-yard throw from Brees to Cook there later in the second half?
Yeah, look, we got behind the defense with a little double move. Jared's one of those guys that does a good job with his catch radius. He made a play over his head. It was a fantastic throw, and the protection was good. So good play by Drew getting us to that look, and we took advantage of a matchup.
And Sean, just the impact special teams had on this game. Can you talk about how they performed for you guys?
Look, I thought, again, man, they set up field position. We won that battle. It was clean. We almost had a couple returns. Obviously, the pooch kick that we get the turnover on, I mean, all of those things led to the win.
How would you say Brady and Brees looked overall? I mean, obviously there's a lot of interest in this game because it's the first 40-something QB.
Look, we'll look at the tape, and I'm going to focus on our team and our quarterback and giving him some better looks offensively. So I'd get back to certainly we'll look back later and we play these guys again too. But they're 2 great players, and we'll look at the tape and evaluate where we need to go for next week's game.
Quite a few defensive pass interference on both sides today. Several other penalties. Was that something you kind of expected maybe in this first game?
I was just asked that question. We can't control that. I mean, in other words, the game's going to be officiated, and especially this year, we're trying to really just focus on the things that we can control. And you just want to have, hopefully it's consistent. But look, we'll look at the film and go from there. Last question.
Sean, Alvin coming out with 2 touchdowns today, almost a third. I mean, did he look exactly like the kind of player you were expecting today? I mean, just after the injuries last year.
Yeah, look, he's had a great camp, and throughout camp, you see it in his step. I'm proud of how he played, and I thought we had some good looks for him offensively. I said it early on, he's a big part of our offense, and he's kind of one of those versatile players. So I'm glad he's on our team. All right, thank you.
That's Sean Payton wrapping up a frustrated head coach, Sean Payton. Drew Brees will be next, but until Drew Brees, let's talk a little bit about what Sean Payton just mentioned there. Of course, frustrated. What stuck out to me is he said, I did a poor job when it came to the zone pressure on Michael Thomas. The Buccaneers were really able to just shut him down. And when you look at the numbers he had last year, it is surprising to see, the stats that Michael Thomas had in this game. He only had 3 receptions for just 17 yards. That's not the typical Michael Thomas we see, but the defense, also some very frustrating calls made pass interference calls. Sean Payton said, those are things we can't control. Some things, they expected, especially with a shortened offseason and no preseason games. That is expected, but we can talk about the dominant effort the defense did have. Janoris Jenkins with a pick six on the first drive of the second half. Did you know this? That was his 8th career pick six, tied for the 5th best in NFL history. Marcus Williams also in on the interception party. He had an interception in the second quarter. And Marshawn Lattimore, again, locked down Mike Evans. Last year, the first game that they played against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that they won at home, Marshawn Lattimore did not allow Mike Evans to have a single catch. Okay, so tonight, you look a year later, how they can attack Marshawn Lattimore in different ways after seeing films. Lattimore said, I don't think so. And he only let Mike Evans only have 1 reception tonight, but that just shows you how good Mike Evans is. That 1 reception led to a touchdown for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then, of course, we've got to talk about the LSU boy, Leonard Fournette. He had 5 carries for 5 yards tonight.